Looks like we're live. There wasn't even a commercial for you this time because I forgot to turn on monetization on the video. I have to do it for every video. I'm assuming the sound's good. Just let me know if the sound is not good. If I'm just like wagging my mouth here and you can't hear me, that's no good. But I had some audio issues last week, and it kind of boils down to I can beam stuff from my computer to my TV in my living room, and every so often the audio thinks it's there and it's not here, but then it says it is here, and I have to reboot the whole system, and it turns into a whole thing. So I didn't actually test that before this. So hopefully y'all can hear me. Today we're going to do a live recording of the podcast, the audio podcast. And we're going to talk about forgiveness. And I think it's a good one for today because it's a good time of year to think about all the grudges you're holding and let that stuff go. You know, as you go into busy season. For me, it's like huge busy season, right? For the coffee, because already holiday orders have come up and it is what it is. Are you asking me if this is a new shirt? Sometimes the beans come out. This came from the Kickstarter that Hollow Roast did a couple years ago. And it was because, so Jenny, Holler neighbor Jenny, was helping Mama Sauce and I stuff these tiny little white coffee bags for Sue Zoldak. And she was doing like a trio of small, I think it was 4-ounce samples for her clients that were ground. And some of, no, they weren't ground. They were whole bean. And so getting the beans into the bag was hard because I don't have a funnel that goes that small. Like you don't want a tiny funnel that beans don't fit through. And every so often we'd knock one over and the beans would come out. And I just said, sometimes the beans come out. And we were pretty loopy by then. So then we made this t-shirt and that was like the Kickstarter t-shirt that the people got who supported the pre-buy for the roaster. Okay, guys on the live, do me a favor, hit the like button. If you haven't followed the channel already and you're interested in what I have to say, subscribe and hit that bell button and follow me. I'm seeing a lot of people on. I'm seeing 20 people on and 5 likes right now. So if you don't mind backing out of the comments, hitting the like, and we'll go from there. So today it is a live recording of the podcast as usual. If you have any questions or comments you want me to see, because I assume you're just talking among yourselves sometimes, put the first couple words in all uppercase. I'll star those, and then when I go back through questions, I will. If I notice that your question happened and it's timely to what I'm talking about, I'll work it into the podcast. What often happens, though, guys, is that it's 2 minutes later that I see what you said, because I think there's a delay between what I say and what you see. And that means it doesn't, like, I've moved on to something else. So I do my best to fit stuff in. If we can't, though, I do my best to hit it at the end. Okay, so we're going to do what we always do, the 5-second pause. So I have a flat line for audio editing, and then we're going to go straight into the podcast. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, October 17th, 2022, and this is episode 638 of Living Free in Tennessee. And you may have noticed the Sunday podcast didn't go out yesterday. That was a miscommunication between me and Pranav. I had sent him the show notes, but when I sent him the audio file, my internet must have glitched out. He never got the audio file. I didn't realize it till this morning. So you will see that 637 and 638 are probably coming out on the same day. Sunday's episode was a great interview I had with Stephen File about strategic home defense. And today we're going to talk about a topic I don't think I've ever brought up before. And that was forgiveness. And I kind of thought I've been having these deep thoughts a lot because I've been doing a lot of catch-up work, which means I'm working with my hands a lot and not on the computer as much since Self-Reliance Festival. And I just started seeing how people were treating other people from a position not of forgiveness, but of judgment. And I started thinking, like, well, how does anybody ever move forward? And so as I started diving into this, in my head, I had all these thoughts. And then we had a tweet by Vin Armani / Cyprian, and he quoted Jesus Christ. And I was like, wow, Jesus said that way better than I've been trying to say it for the last 3 days in my head. So I thought, well, let's talk about what does forgiveness mean, not from the standpoint of me being forgiven by you, but from the standpoint of you being forgiven by me. And what does that mean as we build the life we want to live on our terms, right? Before we dive into that topic, we're going to thank our show sponsor today. And today's show sponsor is Paul Wheaton of Permies.com and Wheaton Labs out in Montana. As you know, Paul Wheaton launched a Kickstarter last week, and we had him on the Wednesday Live to talk about it. We had weird audio gremlins, and he's such a professional that he kept that show going without talking to us because he couldn't hear what we were saying. And we were like texting him questions. It was really fun. Anyway, he has been adding stretch goal after stretch goal. It's doing really well. I have the link in the show notes. If you're on the YouTube Live, it's in the YouTube Live notes. If you use that link, guys, I do get credit for it. He uses tracking links to see which of his sponsorships are sending what traffic to him. The Kickstarter is for it's taught by a certified master gardener, but without the chem ag. So he calls it his garden master course instead of his master garden course. And it's all about how to garden without using the chem products that are so prevalent in our society. I already supported the Kickstarter, and I am excited to look at this because we have an immense amount of pest pressure in Tennessee, and I don't use chemicals to deter them. I use some diatomaceous earth, and I use some Dawn dish soap, and I lose a lot of plants, and I pick things off by hand, and all of these different things. And I'm hoping that I learn a few other things to try. I do know over time, as my soil has gotten healthier, my pest problems are not as bad. But it is Tennessee. We get weeds and we get pests. I also included a few other links because people are so interested in the rocket mass heater. And so he has a guide on free heat and a wood heat DVD set that he sells. Those links are also in the show notes. Full disclosure, if you buy something from those links, I get a tiny, tiny little commission. And I don't want to hide that. I am not supporting Paul because of that commission, by the way. I'm supporting Paul because I support Paul. And to be a sponsor of the show, I have to agree with what you're doing. And he's somebody who I'm so glad I got to meet him in person this year. But I love what he's doing, particularly in the realm of natural building concepts and ways to optimize energy use in your house. A lot of us who are looking to simplify our lives and kind of live how we want, wherever we want, these building practices can free you up from needing to earn as much money to pay the power bill, so to speak, or put as much work into getting your lumber or all of these other things. And it's kind of cool how he has figured out how to, sink heat into the ground and then have it come back out in the winter and be cooler in the summer for the same reason, Anyway, I love what Paul Wheaton's doing, and I appreciate that they are a sponsor of the show. Before we go into our first segment, I also want to just review the live stream schedule for this week. Monday, 10:30 Central. Oh, wait, that's right now. We will record this show. Wednesday at 12:30 Central, I will be live with John Willis and Toolman Tim. And then Friday at 9:30 Central, it'll be the Homestead Happenings live stream, plus also the Q&A that follows. If you want to get questions into the Q&A and you are listening to the audio podcast, you can, live stream people, you can do this too. Email me, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. I put those in a special folder and trot them out for the Q&A. We did a whole bunch of emailed questions last week. Also, you can just go to livingfreeintennessee.com and click on contact if you don't want to try to remember my email address. Those come to me as well. That's a great way to get questions in. And then, of course, on the live stream, we take questions. Well, live. Okay. Time for the first segment of today's show, Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. At some point, I'm going to totally do a segment on keeping stuff organized, not because I'm great at that, but because we've been getting better at that here. And the thing about storing what you use and using what you store and having some surplus around is you got to manage all this stuff, right? And that takes time. But if you set up systems that support you in that endeavor, then you can actually totally keep track of stuff way easier and spend a lot less time doing it. The key is to make space for it and make systems for it, which is something for my canned goods that's been under control for years. For some of the other stuff I store, it's been a little tricky. And this year I've really committed to taking on some of those systems so that there is less chaos around me. Does that mean there's less chaos around me? Not after this last weekend. Oh, no, no, no. We'll talk about one of the things that happened in the show that caused more chaos, not less chaos. Anyway, the use up mode is in full swing. So as I've said, every fall we go from storing it to using it on the homestead because we have surplus in the spring and winter, and the spring and summer. And then in the fall and winter, we start using that surplus. And it's like this pendulum that goes back and forth and back and forth. I've started using the canned goods a month earlier than I usually do because the cold weather has come a little sooner and a little colder than usual. And we're going to run out of green beans and salsa like we always do. I'm going to run out of salsa sooner this year than I ever have because usually I'm able to do one like last push in September and get a couple batches out. But tomatoes did not participate in that. So no salsa for me. So the salsa I canned this summer, which is only a few batches, is all the salsa we have. And that's a little sad. The cool thing is we still have hot peppers on the vines. So I'm going to do a last harvest today of hot peppers because we're getting into the upper 20s this evening. And I'm going to take in my water hyacinth for the night, those sorts of things. But use up mode is in full swing. And then that means like the canned goods that are under my bed get used first, just because they're under my bed. And then the empty jars go back under my bed. That's part of a system, right? I have the places where I store the canned goods, and then the empty jars go where the things are that we use. And that starts with some boxes under my bed. I put my bed up on risers to make it a little taller, and that makes storage under that way better. And it's I used to like have drawers that pulled out from my bed and store my clothes under there, but that's way better for pantry items for me. And then to have them, I put the things under there that mice are not interested in, right? There's not boxes of potatoes or anything because if a mouse gets in my house, I'm not going to notice it under my bed. So I put canned good things, other liquid things, that sort of stuff goes under the bed. And then I have an idea of what's under there, and I have them organized in a way where the canned goods are easiest to get to because I want to use those up first. We are also preparing all the food for the food forest class, which is October 28th and 29th here. We're doing a food forest installation with Nick Ferguson. It's a combination of hands-on and classroom work. If we get like weird, it won't stop raining, inclement weather, there will probably be some planting of things in the rain. But if we see that coming, we're going to do the earthworks before the class and explain to you what we did, and then do more classroom time than hands-on time. Also at that class, Sean Mills is working on the gravity-fed water system. So you'll see how we're doing that. What we've got up for food, breakfasts are pretty much the same, except for one day is sausage and one day is bacon. It's bacon, eggs, hash browns, and whole fruit. I might have a couple breakfast bars out there for people who don't like the bacon and eggs or the sausage and eggs. It's my Grandpa Darby's sausage recipe, and because it got cold early, I was able to take the bacon I had already cured and then put it in the freezer unsmoked and cold smoke it. So it's bacon from the holler made by me. It's going to be delicious. I just had some for breakfast this morning. So that's breakfasts on both Friday and Saturday. Thursday evening, we'll just do what we always do, which is bratwurst burgers, some sauerkraut, some potato chips. When you arrive and set up camping, I think only 2 or 3 of you are camping this time because the class is like we're 20 people total. And a lot of you are staying off site because you're coming from out of town. So that's cool. But those of you who are camping, dinner is usually served between 6 and 8 o'clock or 6 and 7:30. And then we put it away, but they may leave sometimes because we don't know when people are coming. They'll leave a couple snacks out for folks, but that happens Thursday evening, and that's just sort of a hangout. We have a couple beverages and chill out under Taj Mahal, or If it's cold out, we'll hang up the billboard tarps, and we'll get sort of the propane heaters going up under there. And we'll, of course, have a campfire to keep warm. I think this year it's going to be more about keeping warm than keeping cool. I never know what it's going to be. But it looks like it's like right now, it's not forecast to be below freezing that weekend, but it totally could. And we have strategies in place to stay warm. Most of the classes, when we're sitting down, are actually inside, and we can run heat inside. So it's when we get outside, you want to bring layers and that sort of thing. Anyway, I digress. Okay. Friday lunch is turkey tacos. These are turkeys that were raised here. And, taco fixings. It's actually more like burrito style. It's not like hard shells. It's the soft tacos. If you don't want a tortilla, you can totally make turkey taco salad. And then Friday dinner is barbecue themed. We will have pulled pork that I smoked from the pigs we raised here. Rotisserie or smoked chicken. I haven't cooked those yet. I do pre-cook those, so they're just reheated for the meal to make it easier on the kitchen staff on day one. We'll have green beans with butter and bacon, unless somebody tells me they're allergic to pork or can't have pork. Mac and cheese. Yep, I'm serving carbs. And if you are keto, just don't eat the mac and cheese because it's got carbs and wheat in it. And then we'll have a green salad with a nice homemade salad dressing. Everybody loves my homemade salad dressings at these things, so we're totally doing that. Actually, last time Melissa made them, and she'll probably be the one who makes them again this time because I'm feeling a bit of a time crunch with this event so closely followed by Jack Spirko's workshop, and then also coffee. I think we had 40 orders today. Typical is 10 a day. So we're like 4x what's usual. That's normal going into the holiday season, and I'm happy about it. But that just means that a lot more roasting is happening at this time of year. Saturday breakfast is what I already said. Lunch is chili, so like a good beef chili. I'm on the fence about if I'm going to have a second chili with sweet potato chili. We'll see. We'll have salad, side salad, green salad, cornbread, and I'm asking Melissa to make that because she makes delicious cornbread. And then just the fixins that you would have on chili. Saturday dinner, though, this is my birthday dinner. And Saturday, there'll be a few more people on site, probably 10 or 20 more people on site. We're going to start with the butternut squash appetizer put out with the charcuterie platters that we always put out at cocktail time, which is before dinner. I will have oysters in the half shell. I'm ordering fresh oysters from Maine, and they will be served raw on ice. I have asked the kitchen staff if they also want to cook some for some folks. I haven't heard back yet because I just emailed them this morning, but I know there'll be oysters in the half shell. Steve Eversole already got his shucking knife in his gloves, so he's going to help shuck those puppies, and it's going to be great. I had so much fun on my Maine vacation, and I loved it. Was like so easy to stay basically keto there because you're just eating seafood anyway. And I was like, I can ship down some oysters in the half shell for my birthday. So we'll do that. There will be leg of lamb from, yes, the sheep we raised here. That's right. Leg of lamb, mashed potatoes and gravy, salad. And then I have asked for some help identifying somebody to cook birthday cake cupcakes with wheat. I would like German chocolate cupcakes for my birthday. And I'm wanting not boxed German chocolate, like really good. So I put out the call on email to some people for who knows somebody who can make cupcakes. It'll be on the fresh side for Saturday night of my food forest class. Haven't heard back yet. If you're hearing this and you live near me and you're like, I own a baking business and that's what I do, talk to me because I'm certainly not going to cook the cake. You don't want me baking the cake. I'm just saying I'm keto and I don't bake. And I haven't baked much. And when you don't bake much, you fall out of the habit of baking. So that's the food for the event. And then, of course, Sunday, we serve coffee and people hit the road again. For those of you coming, the outdoor shower has been taken apart for the year because of freezing. Assuming we're not having like flukishly cold weather, we will either have it open certain hours during the day for showers. Like right now would be fine. It's warm out. The sun's out. It's not frozen. If that's not possible, we'll be doing showers by appointment in my bathroom. And there are few enough of you camping that I think it'll all work out. And so you can get your shower in. That's all I'm saying. So the thing that happened that caused more chaos in my, store what you use and use with these stores, my fridge broke. So my fridge has been trying to break for about a year. And And I've known it was getting urgent since about 2 weeks before Self-Reliance Festival. And I just didn't have time to address it. What it's doing is it creates this sheet of ice inside itself, and then it melts the sheet of ice and it ends up on my floor. And so like water is slowly seeping into the floor under the fridge on a hardwood floor, which is not great. And I've been doing my best to clean up the water. What used to fix this problem was defrost it thoroughly and then get it going again. Have I looked for a clogged drain plug? Yes, I have. That's not the problem. I don't know what the problem is. Part of the problem may be that the door seals are 15 years old, and maybe it's getting some frost in there. It also is not uniformly cooling things, or you know what I'm saying? So I have had my eye out for a fridge, and I bought one last week at Scratch and Dent, and they said, well, there's no manufacturer's warranty, so I wasn't going to buy it. And then the lady said, well, but if you buy the 5-year protection plan, they have to fix it. And so I did that, and then I got it here, and it was dead on arrival. Like, plugged it in, it caused breakers to trip. And so I tried to use the manufacturer's warranty because I think something's wrong with the wiring inside this fridge. And they were like, oh, no, you can't do that. So then I called Lowe's back, which is where I got the fridge. And they're like, no, but they should not have sold that to you that way. If there is no manufacturer's warranty, we don't sell the extended warranty. So they took the whole thing back. So that was a big old rigmarole. Meanwhile, my fridge is still oozing water. So I get online and I find a fridge, and fridges were on sale. So, you know, $1,300 fridges were $800 at Lowe's, which is still a lot of money for a fridge, but whatever. I don't need anything fancy. And I don't want French doors, for example. That's what I've had. I've had these French doors for 15 years that when I got them, the picture in my head was, I'll know that the milk's on the left side, and I will open the door and the milk will be on the left side, and it will be more efficient. What really happens is I go to the French doors and I open both doors wide and I look in there for whatever I'm looking for, even the milk, which is on the left side. Okay. And so I think what the French doors have done for me is just have more places where air can get into the fridge, and not all that convenient. So I was just looking for a fridge that had, what I want is a fridge with a bottom freezer that's not a drawer. That's just, it opens and it shelves. And then the fridge on the top, because you open the fridge the most, so that's eye level. What I found was I found a fridge with the bottom drawer and the top fridge. And I was looking at top freezers because they're shelves. But then the quality of those were not very good. I didn't find a very good quality one in my price range. So finally, I just got the stupid fridge, and it was supposed to be delivered last week. It's not here. So I still have my fridge that doesn't work, but it kind of works. And yesterday, Tactical's parents were here. Tracy was over. Ken was through to move the bees. The bees got relocated so we can do the food forest class, because we're putting the food forest in right where the bees were, and my bees are aggressive. So those needed to move. Everybody was here. We had a great steak lunch after the bees had moved. And then we took everything out of my fridge, and we moved my fridge out of my house. And here's the thing. My fridge is so big, it won't fit through my door, which I forgot. Like, I bought it 15 years ago. I had it delivered. Apparently they delivered it with the doors off, put it in, put the doors on, and couldn't get it out the door until we took the doors off. So it was a whole thing, and like furniture had to be moved, and all the things that I store on top of the fridge, like the crock pot and whatnot, those are all on my counter now. I have no fridge in my kitchen. I was like, we just got to get it out of here. It's seeping water into my floor, and water's bad. Like, anybody who has a house, it's not good to have water seeping into your floor. So we took it outside. Now it's the outdoor event fridge. And every time I want something, I have to walk outside to get it. So that's where we're at. I've got half my counter space is taken up with things that are supposed to be on top of the fridge, because I don't want to just put them on the floor. And in theory, Wednesday, I'll have the new fridge, and then I can put things back on top of the fridge. But this is actually a good time for me to consider what I've been storing on top of my fridge and decide if I need it. And there was an entire box of homemade peach jam up there. So next time you visit me, if you want some peach jam, just let me know, because I'm keto and don't eat jam anymore. Like, I'll eat one jar of that a year, maybe, just because sometimes I have a treat that's sugar. So I've got like, that's a prime example of something that used to fit my lifestyle, does not fit my lifestyle anymore. I still have it. It's on top of the fridge in the way, so I can't put, the sous vide on top of there, which is what's usually up there as well, and the big bowls. I want to figure out a better way to store my big bowls too, because the less stuff on top of your fridge, the better. That's just my opinion. Okay, so that's the big chaos that's here. So I feel like my whole life's upside down because everything's out on my counters. And I've been really focused on decluttering and making some progress, but not making all the progress. Now I feel like I've taken, 6 steps back on the whole thing. And then, of course, we are towards the end of the cow. So today there are neck bones for dinner. Neck bones. That's right. Neck bones have bones, and they have the meat on the neck from the cow, and the cow has a big neck. So I just threw that in the crock pot with garlic, onion, cumin, and salt, and a little bit of water, and it will braise all day. It'll be delicious and tender and fall off the bone. And that's one of the easiest things to cook. But I know when you get whole animals, what you end up doing is not knowing how to cook things like neck bones. And, that is what it is, right? But it's not a popular dish, but it's one of the most delicious cuts of meats if you cook it low and slow. And I'm actually looking forward to it. I forgot those were in there. I thought I cooked all the neck bones. And then, of course, as I was auditing the freezer, I was like, oh, neck bones. Those are coming out. So Tactical is going to have a great dinner. I actually won't be home for dinner today because it's Monday and I'm singing in my choir on Monday. So he gets neck bones. I get whatever I eat before I leave. Or if my friend meets me for going out to dinner, I might go out to dinner tonight. We'll see. Next segment is the weekly shopping report from Joe for 10/16. And this is what Joe has to say. First was Dollar Tree. There were a few more items restocked on the health aisle, but food and drink coolers are now all very depleted. The food aisle looks good, though, like the canned food. Canned mackerel, although a different kind, has returned to the shelves. I believe there are a few extra employees stocking the shelves, so it appeared to be very random what they were putting out. There is more glassware available. Home Depot was next. A 2x4x8 has dropped in price to $3.75. Guys, remember when they were $1.99? Yeah, me too. It wasn't that long ago. It was hard to tell because some things have moved around. I think they got in more Duracell and or Rayovac batteries, as most battery shelves at checkout were full. Aldi was last. There's a lot more chicken there than in recent weeks and a good amount of lunch meat. Most areas looked good. The only notable exception was the cantaloupes. They had a lot of them, but they all looked wrinkly, suggesting age and poor storage conditions. I didn't see any significant holes, and we found everything we wanted. Okay, here's what I know about Aldi. They ship in trucks, and the things have it. The trucks I don't think are cooled. That could be wrong, but they like load things in their own little crates, and sometimes the produce gets warm, and that's probably what happened to those cantaloupes. Is what whoever was driving, things were loaded wrong, or they sat around wrong, or they got warm. There's all sorts of stuff that can go wrong. Truck drivers I know who drive for Aldi are like, maybe you shouldn't buy the meat there, Nicole. I never asked why. And I buy the meat there sometimes. I don't buy much meat at the store, but I do buy the meat there. All 3 places were busier than I remember, even for Saturday. It didn't look like anyone was panic buying. They were just doing normal shopping. I didn't stop, but untainted gasoline was $4.19. Okay, so that's the shopping report. Looks like things are pretty much more of the same, and they're restocked. A lot of people are giving me comments about fridges in the live stream. That's right. I wish I could fix my fridge, and I might try to, but I could not let it continue to ooze into my floor. Frugality tip of the week is from Margot. That's the next segment. I'm a cheap person, or frugal, I guess, is a better label. There's a difference between frugal and cheap, Margot. And I consider it cheap when at all sacrifices you go for the cheapest thing, not the best value long term. Like there are times when it makes sense to spend more money up front and get the thing that's going to be there forever, versus finding the absolute cheapest one. Or my favorite example is I had somebody once spend 2 weeks of time on and off negotiating down their phone bill. I think it was about $5 a month, which is a lot of time invested when you could be earning 40 or 50 or 60 or $75 an hour doing something else. So there's like this cost benefit trade-off thing you have to think about. Anyway, so never call yourself cheap. Frugal is not bad. We buy things used to use around. Okay, so this week's frugality tip, we like to go to estate sales. The tip part is going on the last day of the sale when everything is half off. We buy things to use around the house for projects. Recently, we got a whole coffee can of screws for $1, channel locks for $1, a screwdriver for 50 cents, a dustpan for 25 cents, and a $300 extension ladder for $50. Go to this website, estatesales.net, put in your zip code, and you can find local sales. That's actually a pretty good tip. A lot of people try to get to estate sales on the first day. That's where you find the coolest stuff, but you're going to pay full price for it. If you have a good idea of what you're looking for and you go to estate sales and love going to estate sales, that's a great way to find stuff. I had so much fun in Maine just going to the antique stores or the junk stores. That was a really fun time for me, and just looking at them. And I found some things I wanted, and I got those things, right? So estate sales are fun if you have time for it. I don't always have time for estate sales, but I definitely feel you on that. I think it's a good frugality tip. I was talking to somebody the other day who, when they left their, it was the Lupreces. When they left their homestead in Texas and they're living in an RV now, they sold it to people and they had a garden. And so they were like, well, we'll just leave the garden shed full of tools. And the people didn't want them. And so a couple of days before they left, somebody left. Somebody showed up to pick something kind of homestead related. And they're like, you can have anything in that shed. And that person cleared out like shovels and all that kind of stuff that cost money for free. And they had just newly moved to a homestead and had nothing. So that was like the best day of that person's life. They got all that stuff for free. And it was all about being in the right place at the right time. I would posit that having a good network's important too. Like if anybody wanted a meat slicer that they wanted to repair, they could have gotten one for free from me this weekend, because I put out on the Tennessee Freedom Cell, the LFTN Freedom Cell network, hey, I've got a meat slicer. It's listed for money on Facebook Marketplace, because never list anything for free on Facebook Marketplace. That'll be more work and than you ever put in than just bringing it to the dump. And it's a commercial meat slicer. It's a good brand. I'm pretty sure it's a simple fix. I don't have time to figure it out. So I decided to sell the stupid thing or just get rid of it. And I said, if you're in the Freedom Cell network, just let me know. You can have it for free. I just don't want to deal with the free people on Facebook who ask me 40,000 questions. And I'm like, listen, it's free. Just come get it. And then if you don't want it, give it to somebody else for free. You know, I've given you the model number. I've given you the thing. I don't know what's wrong with it. If I did know what's wrong with it, I would have fixed it by now. And you can figure it out if you're handy. So it's amazing what you can do just by networking. And that I think also helps you find those good deals, or the junk that other people don't want that's not junk to you. Next segment is Operation Independence. This is where we talk about not needing to pay a guy and or building local revenue into our world here. We're pretty much all hands on deck preparing for the food forest class. Over the last 6 months of sheep, the number of things that have piled up under Taj Mahal is impressive. At this point, I have a 4-wheeler under there that's in pieces that Tactical took apart that needs to be put back together and out of there as soon as possible. I don't know what we're doing about that because he's not working on it right now. So that's going to have to go. And he and I are going to have some talks about if we're just going to get 5 people out here to pick it up and move it somewhere else. But that's a problem. Other than that, it's set up for the class. It's what we're doing, pre-cooking, like all of the things. And then I have a lamb and a half left from the Great Lamb Sale of 2022. We're selling them by the half and by the whole. If you want some lamb meat, you can buy it at livingfreeintennessee.com. There's a link. I guess I'll put a link in the show notes. It's probably not super easy to find. If you can't find it, just email me. I'll hook you up. Our price per pound works out to $10 to $12 per take home pound of meat, which is significantly less than what you pay in Nashville right now, which is about $18 a pound. You're looking at between $400 and $500 for a whole lamb by the time we're all in and pay the butcher and all of that. But if you're interested in that, it is delicious. We have not pesticided them. I did give one lamb antibiotics, full disclosure. That lamb is not for sale. I'm going to eat that lamb. He's been 2 months off of the antibiotics before we processed him. And I am willing to eat that because I don't believe there's still antibiotics in his meat, but other people would. So we kept that out of the whole thing. And I was able to work with the butcher to keep that separate. So, because we're working with a very small craft butcher, I'm very excited about it. Anyway, that's what we have under Operation Independence. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show: forgive. I was originally going to call this show Forgiveness, but forgive is like more active. And I've really been thinking about forgiveness lately, and it's kind of in reaction to punitive actions that we take against other people who do things that are illegal. And we don't ask, I'm saying we society don't necessarily ask, is it right or wrong? It's just because it is illegal. And then we ruin people's lives over something that maybe we didn't need to ruin their lives over. But it's a tendency in our culture to want to make people pay for what they've done. And I started just thinking, I just kept coming across example after example. And we've had a lot of talks about addiction here. Addiction leads people to do some pretty crazy stuff, guys. And it really came down to it when one of my friends was mad at another one of my friends because of that second person's unchristian lifestyle. And I was like, well, I mean, I have a large number of Christians in my life who never ask anybody around them if they are Christian or not. They do not choose to associate based on if a person is of their faith or not. And what they do is they love everybody unconditionally. They take them as they are. They manage to do this without getting hurt. And that was in great contrast to this single situation where a person who is Christian was very upset because somebody else is not. And they think they're of Satan, and then wanted to take punitive action. And I was like, well, this is uncomfortable to navigate, right? And then, as I understand it, is it your job really to take punitive action against somebody like that? And I started having conversations in my head because I'm wandering around the holler working my hands. And I'm like, I can think of, both my hands and feet full of people who are of deep Christian faith, who interact with this person who's not. They get along great. They love the person. And it all works. And there's no need to take punitive action against the person. It's not like they're killing puppies or something. They just don't believe in Jesus Christ. And I thought, well, why is that possible? Why is that possible? And I started thinking about these people who fit on both my hands and feet in number. And I thought, as I look at my friends who are in these communities, something they all share is they have an immense capacity for forgiveness. So something happens, something goes wrong. They feel their feelings, I'm sure. They get mad, and then they forgive, and they go on. That's a big thing. And I think another big thing is they have given up. They don't see it as their place or their role to decide for other people. And then this tweet came out from Vin Armani / Cyprian. He's changed his name. And he said, while on the cross, Christ interceded on behalf of those who crucified him, seeking that they might be forgiven and thereby saved. Quote, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then he said, when you wish destruction on those whose degeneracy disgusts you, whom are you serving? And I thought, well, that's interesting that this this tweet came out the same day I'm thinking, I really want to think about how forgiveness plays an important role in our lives, right? Because when you forgive people, you're free. And if you don't forgive people, you are enslaved. And then I wrote back to him, I'm like, well, he said it better than I was able to say, because I've like been like struggling in my head. Like, how do I explain my thoughts on forgiveness on the podcast on Monday? Like, what am I going to say? How am I going to explain it? I wish somebody somewhere had said something about it, in clear words. Didn't think to go find a Bible and open it. By the way, full disclosure, I'm not a Bible reader and I'm not Christian. So I'm coming at this from, I was raised Catholic. My religious views are more, it's more that I believe in a higher power, but I haven't named it. So a lot of people who believe in Jesus Christ also believe I'm going to hell, but I see a lot of great things in the Christian faith, and it is what it is. I'm putting that out there so that we don't have any misunderstandings later. But this forgiveness thing, why does forgiving lead to a better life? Because I really think when you learn to forgive people around you and to forgive yourself, a lot of positive things happen. A lot of moving forward happens. And if you can't forgive, it leads down a path you don't want to go. And so as I started like thinking about forgive and forgiving from the standpoint not of being forgiven for what I've done wrong, but for forgiving other people, there's a saying, you need to give that person grace, right? You don't know what they're facing. And I think that's part of forgiveness is it's very easy from the outside to say somebody should behave this way or that way or this other way, but you don't know what happened when they got up this morning, what they came across, what was said to them by their spouse or their children or their parents or their teachers. You don't know any of that. You don't know if their friend just committed suicide. You don't know if somebody ran over their foot and it's a broken foot and they're pretending not to have a broken foot. Like, you don't know what's going on. And if you assume that they're in a perfect mental state that day and they're just being a jerk, you may be wrong. They may just be in a lot of pain right now and not sure how to act, right? So I think forgiving leads to a better life for you for a couple of reasons. And the first one is you can move into the future if you let go of the past. And your mindset is right if you forgive people and move into the future. But if you obsess on the thing that somebody has done, you are stuck in the past and you are not moving forward. And I think about years ago, I learned this lesson the hard way because I like to learn my lessons all the hard way. I was running a nonprofit organization that I had founded, and my biggest grantor who supported the nonprofit had given me money to do a project that required another person who I had hired on to do the work. And he was pretty much the only person in the country who could do this project. And as we got started, I don't know what happened exactly, but he kind of started melting down about some things and started feeling, I think, paranoid about the funding sources. And I like to this day don't know what happened, but he managed to offend my donor so much that I lost them forever. And halfway through the project, the rest of the project didn't get funded. Plus, I could not deliver what I promised because then he evaporated. And I was mad. And I held a grudge about it because you can't trust somebody who does that to you and doesn't live up to their agreements. You can't trust them. And you certainly can't forgive them because they've hurt you. They hurt the ability for me to grow that organization pretty much forever in that particular network because of what happened. And then I came across, I didn't talk to him for years. And I ran into him. And I could tell he wasn't sure if he should talk to me or not. And I looked at him and I thought, I don't know what he was going through at that time. And he looked really tentative, and I made a decision at that moment to forgive him. That was the moment I forgave him. And I put a big smile on my face and I said, "Hey man, you want to go grab a beer?" And we had a beer, and I didn't say I forgive you, but I was like, "Let's put that behind us and move forward. Tell me what you're doing now." And the look of relief on his face was amazing. And to this day, I'm friends with this guy and I'm friends with his wife. I know, as I said, I'll never know what happened. All it took was me forgiving him for him not to have this pressure on his shoulder. Likewise, the moment I forgave him, I felt lighter. I wasn't defensive. I wasn't stuck in the past, and I was able to focus on moving my organization forward at that time into a totally different arena, by the way. And I started having success. And I really think it was because I could move into the future because I wasn't obsessed about how that guy did me wrong. Right? I forgave him. I moved on. We have never been in a business relationship since that time, but it doesn't matter. We're friends. And he's helped me in ways, and I've helped him in ways since that time. That was it. The other thing I think about forgiveness, the other way it helps you, is you stop evaluating new relationships based on the lens of what happened in old relationships. And this is, both business-wise and romantically speaking. A lot of us have relationships that didn't work out well. Maybe we married an alcoholic. Maybe they had depression issues. Maybe they beat us. I don't know. I'm coming from a female perspective here. And then we go into the next relationship with the assumption that there's a chance this person's going to do the thing that hurt us so bad before, because we haven't forgiven that person and moved on. And so then we set up a situation where it happens, right? Where it happens. Or we set up a situation where we think it's happening and it's not. Or we set up a situation where it doesn't work because we self-sabotaged that relationship. And I did this for 20 years. I had a relationship where I was engaged to somebody to be married, and he left before we got married. He just, from my perspective, it was out of nowhere, peace out, done. And I came out of that feeling like I'm not good enough, or I'm too much, because I am a lot. And assumed everybody else I would be in a relationship with, if I showed them who I really was, would just leave. And that meant I ended up in relationships where I didn't show all of myself, and then would become so uncomfortable hiding the intense part of my personality from the people that I would eventually just leave because I couldn't handle it anymore. It hurt too much to not be myself in the relationship. And the sad thing about this is that happened with some people who probably already knew about the intense part of my personality, because who am I kidding? I can't really hide that. And we're perfectly fine with it. So I sabotaged 20 years of relationships by not forgiving that guy, and by not realizing, not taking the time to put it behind me and move on, and bringing all of that baggage forward. This is why I went to a psychologist a couple years ago after my recent breakup, because I was like, I am not doing this ever again. I'm not doing it ever again. I'm going to forgive. And one of the people that had to be forgiven in all of that was me, because I have sabotaged relationships for 20 years. 20 years. I have done it. I needed to be forgiven. I needed to be forgiven by me. And so when I said that this is not about me needing to be forgiven. It's about me needing to forgive other people, sort of like, and I'm saying that me, like you, one needs to forgive others. Sometimes the other that you need to forgive is in fact yourself. It's important that you forgive yourself, though, not that other people forgive you. You can ask for forgiveness from people you've wronged, but you can't make them forgive you. And that's the thing. You can only control one person. You are the person you control. So that was another thing. So one, we've got you move into the future if you let it go, and your mindset is right, and you're more likely to be successful with the right mindset. Two, you don't bring past crap forward. It's kind of the same thing, but not into relationships. Self-sabotaging that or setting up a situation where the same thing happens again and again and again. Three, you are able to focus your energy on building good things rather than salvaging the non-salvageable. Yeah, let's talk about that. How long should you put into trying to salvage something that you should have written off a long time ago? How many years? If you forgive and forget, you're done. You move on. Hello, empty knives. If you don't forgive and obsess and try to fix it, or try to make somebody like you who does not like you, you get stuck there and you never move on to some really awesome things that could be happening, right? And I think about this where I have website clients from the last 5 years who hired me to do websites, paid me half down. I helped them build it, or I built it, and it's all done except for some content or something. It never launched, and they never paid me the second payment, and they don't answer my emails. I can do two things here. I can go after them for payment. I can go after them for and just try to collect and try to collect and try to collect, or I can forgive them and move on. What's more important? Would I rather spend time figuring out how we're going to build Self-Reliance Festival into an even better event next year, or doing my food forest class, or launching my coaching program? Would I rather do that? Or would I rather spend the next 6 months trying to dog somebody down for $900? I can tell you the choice I've made. Once somebody stops answering my emails, I could go to a collections company and I could do that, but it's not worth it. Maybe I did something wrong I don't know about, right? I don't know. Maybe they hate the site and don't know how to tell me. In general, this is part of why I don't do websites anymore. I work with people to help set their marketing strategy, and then other people build it, and I'm out because there is a lot of I don't know in website development where we build the websites, and then the person building the website's like, I don't know, and then they get stuck in the I don't know cycle. And as they're stuck in the I don't know cycle, you're not getting paid, but you've done the work. So you can structure things differently. And I could do that if I wanted to be 100% professional web developer still. I don't. I'm doing this podcast. I'm roasting coffee. We're doing events. I'm helping people develop their life plans and implement them. You know, I don't help them with the implementation, but figure out how to implement them. And if I obsessed on that, it wouldn't be worth it, which means if I see any of those people in person, I'm not mad. I don't know what went wrong. I have moved on. Is what it is, right? It's kind of like really tangibly that meat slicer I talked about earlier in the show. I bought a commercial meat slicer on auction that supposedly worked, and I got it home and I could not get it to work. And I think the safety, because it's like one of those deli ones, you know, that's gravity fed. I think the safety on it is not unsafetying because the motor turns on. It just doesn't spin the thing. And I handed it to Tactical like last April. I'm like, figure out how to fix this, please. And he's had no time or interest in fixing it. And I've had no time or interest in fixing it. And finally, this week, I said, bring the meat slicer up to my house because I'm going to look at it and I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to get rid of it. And I spent about an hour playing with it, looking on YouTube, that sort of thing. Did not figure it out. And I made a decision. I have $240 invested into that meat slicer, and it doesn't work. A replacement meat slicer is about $300. New. I can spend the next 6 months trying to rebuild this whole stupid meat slicer, or I can get rid of the dang meat slicer and get the new one, and it'll work from the minute it gets here, probably. Yeah, not everything arrives in working order, as my fridge demonstrated earlier this week. But you know what I mean. Like, it'll probably work. And my time's worth something. I would rather spend 2 hours on the phone coaching somebody than trying to figure out this meat slicer. So I put it online for sale. It did not sell. And on Sunday, when we went to the dump, the meat slicer went on the trailer and it went into the dumpster because I don't have time to mess with it. So that thing's going to be scrap metal by the end of the week. And somebody missed out on a free meat slicer that they could have fixed if they knew how to fix it. At the same time, I understand why you wouldn't want a project meat slicer. I already have a replacement meat slicer. I have sliced 20 pounds of bacon with it. It worked great. It worked great. That means I don't have to hand slice all the bacon for the workshop. And that's, how does that have to do with forgiveness? I had to forgive myself for wasting the money on it and move on. And there's a lot of things like that in my life where it's like, this decision's made. It was clearly the wrong decision. And now I'm dealing with the wrong decision by throwing good money after bad, right? Or good effort after bad. Nope. Forgive, move on. The other thing about forgiveness is surrounding yourself with the kind of people who understand it. And this is going to bring us into sort of like, what do we mean when we say forgive and forget? Forgive or forget can get you in trouble, can't it? Because if you forgive somebody and you forget and you move on and they do it again and they do it again and they do it again, that's not fun. And so a lot of people say you're forgiven but not forgotten. And that's a trust thing. I actually prefer forgive and forget. I prefer forgive and forget because I think, like, you never really forget, but forgive and move on is forgive and forget for me. And that may mean that you don't expose yourself to something that's unhealthy that you see could happen again. At the same time, forgive and forget helps you put it behind you and move on and interact with a person or people in a way that's healthy. And I thought about this because I saw Sue Laprice, who the Laprices just came through this weekend with 5 of their children. And she had a picture of her husband, Mike, like snuggling on one of the little kids. And she said, I love how no matter how bad the child was the day before, Mike starts every day by loving on all the children. And, and that is how it should be. I mean, kids do things, right? Kids do things. It's part of growing up. They test boundaries. They do all sorts of stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool because that's forgive and forget, right? It doesn't matter what you did yesterday. What matters now is what you do today. And it's one of the reasons I love working with John Willis is, I've worked with him on a number of events that we do at his place. And inevitably, I'm going to make a decision as the event coordinator that will be not what he would have wanted. And John Willis will tell you when you do something that is not as he wanted. And here's how he does it. He's like, let's go for a walk. And then you're like, okay, I'm about to hear something that I did that was not right. And he'll say, this thing that happened has happened. This is, this is what I want to have happen. And this is basically what needs to be done to fix it. If that is a thing, or next time it needs to be done this way. He always does it in private. And then I look at him and I say, okay, or some equivalent of okay. And then we go on and I never hear about it again. And the next time the scenario comes up like that, I do it the way he asked me to do it. that's forgiven and forgotten, right? That's like, this is wrong. I'm telling you it's wrong. This is what you do to remedy it. And I'm assuming you're going to remedy it now. And we move on. And I agree. I love working with people like that because there's no way anybody ever does everything exactly right all the time. And if you don't know you've done something, I think part of forgiveness is letting people know when they've done something that hurts you or is over the line. And in a way that's not like accusatory, but like, hey, this happened and this is what I'd like to see happen in the future. Can we do that? And then, usually people are like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I shouldn't drink out of that coffee cup because it's your favorite coffee cup or whatever it is. I'll never drink out of that coffee cup again. And then you move on. So often in our culture, because we're trying not to be judgmental, we don't mention when something is a problem. And I think part of forgiveness is being able to communicate when there is a problem, communicate what the problem is, communicate what the remedy is. That's just basic respect. And that's part of forgiveness. How can you forgive somebody if you never even gave them a chance to fix it or to do something different? You just got mad and then didn't tell them why. How can we expect that doesn't happen again if somebody doesn't know, right? So I really think forgiveness goes back to clarity on what the problem is, communicating that when you can. You can't always, right? Giving the person the chance to make amends, moving past it and putting it behind you. That's what I mean by forget. So forgetting it. And then living life for what's happening now and what can happen tomorrow, and not just married to what happened in the past. We learn from the past, but if we don't move on from the past, we never get anywhere. And it kind of relates to what Testimona said about depression, which is, how would you talk to a friend if they brought this problem to you? Are you talking to yourself that way? So back to forgiving yourself. It's the same thing, right? A lot of times the not forgiving of yourself is bringing a lot of crap forward. So that is all my thoughts on forgiveness today. Forgive yourself, forgive those around you, and build your future. And stop worrying about the punitive piece, the making them pay for the problems they cause. Like, I understand that people should make amends. That's what restorative justice is about, as opposed to punitive justice. But making people suffer, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But forgiveness can be hard, but it's worth the effort, guys. With that, if you like the show and the work I do here, you can support me in a couple ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. Makes great Christmas presents. We're actually launching a mug and a pound this time. And we finally got the mug chosen, and I'll have some pictures of that out this week, I think. I'll see if Mama Sauce has one I can show you. The other way you can support the show is become a member. Just go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on membership to sign up. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Okay, so I was all deep today, right? I have some things starred to talk about that you all brought up in the live stream. Margot said forgiveness is the key to personal sanity. Yeah, I wish I had really learned more about forgiveness younger. And it wasn't through lack of people trying to teach me about forgiveness. I take a while to internalize things more than people think, because I'm a quick processor mentally, but emotionally it takes me a while to understand what I'm feeling. I might be on the spectrum, guys. I don't know. I feel things very, very deeply, and I don't know if it's more deeply than anybody else, because I don't know how other people feel things, but there'll be the feeling before I process what the feeling means. I have I'm very empathic. So when there's a lot of other people emotions around me, like, I take those on, even though I try not to. And it's part of what makes me good at facilitating, is I can read the body language. But part of that is like onslaught of body language. So I have a lot of tools I've developed to go back and analyze situations and say, okay, what does this mean? But that forgiveness piece, like, the thing that happened with the guy and my nonprofit was probably one of the single most important happenings in my life, because that was when I really understood what forgiveness meant and what you give up when you forgive somebody and what you gain. Like, people think about what we're giving up when we forgive, but actually you gain so much more, because all of the negative energy around problems goes away. And like, I don't just instantly let's talk human here, right? I don't just like, I instantly forgive you and it's done. No, I take 2 weeks to deal with my feels and I forgive you. Even if I've said I've forgiven you, I have mentally forgiven you. Feelings wise, that takes a little longer, right? But it's always my goal to forgive, because there's no point in me bringing that negative on us at all, right? Okay. Margot says, if I was coming, I'd bake your cupcakes. I can even do gluten-free. All right. And then Claiming Liberty says, I have a baking business. Don't see you on the roster of the Food Forest class, Claiming Liberty. But yes, I really want German chocolate cupcakes that are homemade and not box made, if possible. If not, I'm just going to buy like a cheesecake, because I like cheesecake too. And I'll eventually get my German chocolate fix at Christmas time when I can make the cake. Margot says, girl, been there. Self-care is a daily progress to stay grounded. Forgiveness is very freeing. Yeah, it is so freeing. Margot says, forgiveness without needing acceptance is also very important. Yeah. Okay. So this is a thing. I grew up bullied. Hard. And part of what that did to me mentally is it made me want people to like me stronger. Like, it's like a self-esteem issue, really. I really wanted everybody to like me. I don't really actually care if everybody likes me now, but I really did for a really long time. And because of that, I would set up situations that were totally unhealthy, because I, oh, Melissa can do it. Yes. German chocolate cupcakes from Melissa from scratch. Tell me if I need the ingredients here or if you're going to do them at home in advance. Oh, by the way, you're sleeping in my guest room because it turns out Mama Sauce is not here. So you even have a place to sleep if you want to come a day early and make German chocolate cupcakes. And I get to pre-taste them, right? Anyway, it's really interesting, this when somebody has that I need to be liked thing. I really sympathize with it because I used to have it. And eventually I realized that not everybody's going to like you. So you got to do with that what you will. And if not everybody likes you, it's still okay. It's still okay. I mean, you don't like everybody either, do you? And we don't have to be butts about it, right? You can like not like somebody and also not interact with them or take out your frustrations on them. Move on with life. Some of the sheep don't like each other. Some of my cats don't like each other. They just ignore each other mostly. So that's my thoughts there. Claiming Liberty says, forgiveness is for us, not the person we're forgiving. That's also true. I've had a number of people in my life, though, usually substance related, like substance abuse related, come into my life addicted to, whatever, and cause problems and leave my life, usually because I'm like, you gotta go. And then come back years later and say, hey, I'm really sorry for how I behaved during this time. I had an addiction problem. I have addressed or am addressing said addiction problem. And I just thought about all the things I said to you or did to you or whatever, or stole from you. And I'm back here to say, I'm sorry. I think in that situation, even if you're mad at the person still, because a lot of hurt can happen in those situations, the best thing you can do is forgive them, because it does make them feel better. And it does give them more power to continue addressing their addiction problems or whatever it is. It's not always addiction problems, it's just addiction problems. I've had a lot of people with addiction problems in my life over my life. And so that's the one I always go to because I think about it. And it's, having seen a number of people address their addiction problems and what they face as part of that, it's like they have to forgive themselves for the things they did to people they love. Like, how hard is that? But if they don't do that, then they don't ever really get out of that cycle that puts them back into the substance abuse issue. You know, there's lots of reasons substance abuse happens, but on top of that, and then you're like, and I hurt all the people I love. And now, you know, so if you can forgive them, that's like an olive branch for them. It's something they can hang on to that maybe takes them up another step. And the more of us who climb our stairs in the good way, the better the world is, right? So anyway, I don't see any other questions in the chat, guys. So I think we're going to wrap for the day. Thanks for joining the show. I'll have this out as the audio podcast by 2 or 3 p.m. And see you Wednesday for the live stream with Tim Cook at 12:30 Central. Make it a great week.